Hello YouTube and welcome back, I'm Nico and you're watching Dare to Game. Today's TV Tuesday video will be taking a look at the 5 biggest WTF moments in HBO's Game of Thrones so far. This list is of course based 100% on my own opinion. Basically, what we are looking at here are things that either happened in the show that make no sense, or should have in reality ended differently. Bear in mind, this will contain serious spoilers for the entire series, so if you would like to avoid that, leave now. So for everyone that's still here, let's dive on in. Number 5, Margaery Tyrell's death. Now, to be fair, a lot more people died in this scene than just her, but she was definitely the best character to go up in flames in Cersei's coup d'etat. This death was one of the dumbest, nonsensical deaths in the show that we've seen so far. For one thing, just from a viewer's perspective, it was infuriating, since she was a very compelling character as far as side characters go. She had survived quite a lot to die like this. From a plot point of view, it really makes no sense. First of all, everyone in that sept should have been hella suspicious that Cersei wasn't there, as Margaery pointed out to the High Sparrow before the whole place went up. It didn't make any sense that nobody would be suspicious. For another thing, when people started to panic and tried to escape, the Sparrows didn't let them. Why not? They were not on trial. As far as I know, no one in that sept could be compelled in any way to stay. Even Margaery and Loras Tyrell had already done their penance and should have been free to go. So this scene made no sense at all. Basically, they all died because of bad writing. Also, Lancel had more than enough time to get over to that candle and put it out before any of this happened. So, if I were CinemaSins, this scene would have really racked them up. Number 4, when Arya got stabbed like 4 times in the abdomen and just walked it off. Sure, with this one you could make the argument that she spent all sorts of time being healed off screen, but how? First of all, that is something that they should telegraph in some way. Maybe with a shot of her healing in the Citadel or something. But no, none of that. She is basically healed by a nap. From what we saw, she had several deep stab wounds right in her abdomen, making the odds that it didn't hit anything important very slim. At the very least, she would have perforated intestines and would die over the course of a week. Seriously, how would she have been healed? She didn't have any money as far as we know, so how would she pay for treatment in the first place? And, to take it a step further, that's a relatively advanced surgery we are talking about. And that's just the intestines, and assuming she didn't have any vital stab wounds, or a ton of internal bleeding. I know Arya is tough, but I just don't find this scenario feasible. Also, as a final note, why didn't the waif, the master assassin, just slit her throat, or kill her in her sleep? For an unstoppable killing organization, they had a really hard time killing a 12-year-old girl. Number 3, Rickon Stark's death from stupidity. Okay, it's hard to narrow down the dumbest thing Rickon has ever done. Basically, his entire 15 minutes of screen time, stretched across the first 6 seasons, consisted of him being a dumb wild child. But I think his death takes the cake. I understand that the plot needed him to die in this way to make Jon charge. And don't even get me started on how stupid that was. But seriously, has Rickon never heard of rapid course correction? For one thing, that shot was insanely unlikely. Just the range and apparent accuracy that Ramsay is capable of makes this whole scene well out of the realm of possibility. And if he can shoot like that, why didn't Jon sprout an arrow out of his head or chest during the battle? Seriously. But back to Rickon. A simple left or right turn at any point would have saved him from becoming the dumbest Stark to date. But no, just to be courteous to his host, he ran perfectly straight line so Ramsay could split the arrow from 2 football fields away. Number 2, when the Lannister forces took Highgarden like it was no big deal. So I don't know about you, but this one really bothers me. So let's first go through the facts. Highgarden is a huge, very well defended castle. They have more than enough resources to outlast the Lannisters in a siege, or at least for a really long time, giving their allies enough time to come to their aid. The Reach has the largest army in all of Westeros, approximately 80 to 100,000 men, with almost 40,000 of them being from Highgarden alone. Comparatively, the Westerlands have the next biggest army in Westeros, at an estimated 50,000 at the start of the show. But by this point in the show, tens of thousands had been killed off in the War of the Five Kings, so just logistically, there is no way the Lannister army could have taken Highgarden in an open assault. But to make things worse, the showrunners decided to do it off-screen. Didn't show a battle plan, or mention any specific secret approach or nighttime raid. They just cut from the outside army to the interior after the whole place had been captured. Olenna asks Jaime if they fought well, and he says as well as can be expected. Really? As well as can be expected. Even if Highgarden only had 10,000 garrison troops, it would have still been a slaughter if the Lannisters had tried to breach the gate or scale those high-ass walls. And then we don't even get any indication that the Lannisters lost a ton of men in the assault. This whole situation is absolutely terrible and unbelievable. It would have been one thing if they had showed the battle and included some epic battle scenes showing Lannisters just shredding apart Tyrell forces, and maybe some excellent strategies, but we are supposed to believe that the Lannisters just strolled through and defeated the strongest army in the realm in one of the most imposing castles in the show? I call major bullshit on that. Now for a few honorable mentions, since there were so many things that I wanted to add to this list, but I wanted to keep it down to 5. So, for the sake of saving time, I'll rattle off a couple more instances where the show made little to no sense whatsoever, and it worked basically because the show said it worked. So, for starters, there's Daenerys' one-day trip to rescue Jon Snow and his band of brothers beyond the Wall, and an extension of that being the Whites somehow getting chains around Viserion, so they can haul him out of the water. But as far as the Daenerys trip goes, just so you know what I mean, so they get in trouble. They send Gendry running back to the Wall, which presumably was a long distance away. He then sends a raven all the way down to Dragonstone, where Daenerys is, as we know, the other side of Westeros, quite a distance away. And then she has enough time within a day or so to fly all the way back to the other side of the world and save them. So, just ridiculous there. Then we have the Red Viper of Dorne, Prince Oberyn, being killed by the Mountain after he'd slashed him 2 or 3 times with a poisoned spear and buried it in his chest. Not only is this annoying because Oberyn should have finished him off instead of taunting him, but also because the Mountain should have been dead. Then there's the Greyjoys. Just everything about them. Theon taking Winterfell, Yara's failed rescue attempt, Euron's attack on Yara's fleet that decimated them, Euron somehow being able to build hundreds of ships in no time at all on islands with no trees, and Theon somehow becoming impervious to pain from groin kicks just because he no longer has balls. The show has taught us that we cannot take the Ironborn seriously. Then, lastly for honorable mentions, we have Jon Snow's idiotic actions in the Battle of the Bastards, and him not dying from them. For one thing, he did exactly what he was warned not to do beforehand, which was do what Ramsay wanted him to do. And that was after he made the decision to field a much smaller army of ill-equipped guerrilla fighters against well-armed, supplied, and heavily trained heavy cavalry and infantry supported by a few divisions of archers. If all of this wasn't insulting enough to our intelligence, we have that badass scene where Jon is being charged by the Bolton cavalry, you know the one, and every one of them avoids him, instead of riding him down and killing him right there. Don't get me wrong, it's a good episode, but the writing is terrible. So our number 1 spot goes to the tactics at the Battle of Winterfell. So I know, I and many others have said this before, but what the hell were they thinking? So they have a castle that by the show's own rules is very defensible. They have a really decent-sized force of pretty well-trained soldiers, more than enough to cover the whole wall thick shoulder to shoulder, and they have magical dragon glass which turns whites and white walkers to dust when scratched with it. And they have days, if not weeks, to prepare for the battle. And what do they decide to do? Well, they put all their troops outside of the castle. This is mistake number 1. A castle is a force multiplier. This means that 10,000 troops inside of a castle are feasibly worth 50,000 troops on the open field, if not more. So they are right away giving up their greatest advantage. Then we have how they decided to do that. First, they have their light cavalry charge directly into the heart of the enemy force, instead of using them in a more conventional manner, which would have been as skirmishers doing hit-and-run strikes on the flanks of the enemy force. Then they have catapults and trebuchets to defend the castle. Catapults are fine. This is what they're for, to be fair. They should be in the castle, but no big deal. The trebuchets are where we really have a problem. Trebuchets are offensive weapons. They are not mobile, and they are easy to destroy. They are meant to be set up and fire at a wall or gatehouse to bust it open so troops can get in. And as I said, the real flaw is that they are outside the walls in front of their spearmen instead of being behind the walls like they should be. Which brings us to our next issue, that being the heavy infantry of the Knights of the Vale, the Wildlings, and the Night's Watch, and all the Unsullied are arranged on the ground outside of the wall. Why would you do that? What tactic is that? By all rights, everyone outside of the wall during this battle should have died, because that's what would have happened in real life. So now that I've pointed out all the major flaws, let me tell you what I would have done. First, I would have sent all the people that are unable to do anything useful in the battle south. You know, like the women who aren't fighting, the children, the old, the frail, all the people down in the crypts. Yeah, don't have them in the crypts. Send them south. I probably would have sent them to the Vale just because it's, you know, the safest place for them, just in case everything goes bad in this battle. That way you wouldn't have them potentially being slaughtered and turning into whites, and also have more resources for the combatants, you know, such as food. Then I would have equipped the Dothraki with dragonglass weapons and had them doing hit-and-run missions on the armies of the dead from when they breached the wall all the way until they got to Winterfell. This would have cut down on the enemy's forces and probably given the other people in the north more time to evacuate south. I would have coated the walls and battlements and gate in dragonglass spikes, and built the trench, and done all the fortifications building that they did. But then I would have kept all my soldiers lined on the walls and in the courtyard of the castle, and focused primarily on making arrowheads out of dragonglass and fire, since fire kills whites. And I would have also been employing pitch barrels and burning oil. Then defense would have been the name of the game. Use the castle to your advantage instead of just completely ignoring it. Rain down death and destruction on the enemy with fire arrows, catapults, throwing pitch, wildfire, and oil, and then light the place up with dragons. But that's just me, and every other person who ever learned a single thing about medieval battle tactics ever, which apparently doesn't include the writers of Game of Thrones. So that's my list of top 5 WTF moments in Game of Thrones so far. I hope you liked this video, and I would also like to hear if you think that there are any I left out. So why don't you let me know down in that comment section. But either way, that's all for today. I'm out. Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. If you did, I can assume you liked the content, and hopefully you'll subscribe and turn on the notification bell. If you haven't already, check out these links I have on the screen to see me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you like my content and would like to support what I do here, there's a link to my Patreon account in the description, and a donation would be much appreciated. In any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day.